Dr. Amal, would you like to introduce your students?
Absolutely. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce Hunter Wert. He's a computer science major. Kendall McCay, music major. And Joshua Riddle, computer science major. They took a course called Database Systems in the last semester, and this current presentation is coming out of that course.
All right. Good morning. So the main purpose of this project is to kind of create a functional operations for a restaurant, or put more simply, to kind of make an online ordering system for a pizza place. And to make this, we mainly collaborated online through Teams. To make this chart you see before you, called an ERD, we used Lucidchart. And for the actual code itself, we collaborated with both Microsoft SQL Server 2019, and we use C# as the language to format the interface. And Kendall, take it away.
Okay. So I'm going to walk everybody through a basic idea of what the ERD is. So this was designed in an iterative process in which all of our team members met regularly to discuss different decisions that we were making on how to organize things. So as everyone can see, there's a lot of tables here, and each of these tables have a lot of things in them. The idea here is essentially that if you were to take an Excel document and make a spreadsheet that contains data about things, you would then split that up to put it into a database, sort of based on a theme idea, and you would have objects that come out of that and certain attributes for each object. And that's kind of what you see here. For example, every employee is going to have a first name, a last name, date of birth, etc., right? So then there are primary, foreign key relationships here, and basically what that is it's a way for the database to actually look at what is what and say, okay, this table links with this table. If I need information from here, here's how I can get to it. This is how I can retrieve it. So the process of making this, started and kind of took a couple of weeks to kind of get an idea of what exactly we wanted to do, because there's a lot of ways that you can go about making this. There's a lot of different decisions here that have got to be made about how to handle the data, and because of that, it comes out a lot more organized than something like a spreadsheet. It's very useful for large-scale applications, such as, take for example, Amazon's database and like what they have to take into account in order to do the sort of business that they do. It's very useful for that. Of course, a spreadsheet would work much better for something way smaller, because this takes a lot of work to implement as well. So, a little bit more about this. If you see this, discrete and non-discrete, or disjoint and non-disjointed stuff. So essentially, we've got different types of data that fall under the same sort of item, may have different types of data associated with it. That's kind of what that is, and a really good example of that is here in the employee table, where we have a pay type, salary, or wage, and that way we can store everyone in the same table and just retrieve the information from elsewhere about what that specific employee is actually on as far as salary or wage. But that's essentially the design of a relational database. So then now we're going to actually show you the application. Yeah.
Okay. For the application, we use Visual Studio 2019 and 2022 to develop the interface. It's a fairly basic look. It doesn't have all the fanciness that you might expect to see on like a website or a fully functional website. This one is developed more as like a prototype to show a prospective client. And here you have an item box that you can order as many or as little as you want. It's limits. You can't order less than one. And right now, just for the sake of ease, it's set to a maximum order of like 5 or 10, and it'll tell you like to make a phone call, place a special order. It's got restrictions where it's not going to let you order if you don't have a payment type. Either you don't have anything in there, you have to add to the order. You put it in, you'll choose your cash or credit, and place the order. It's supposed to give you an order number after you complete it, but that's not working right now. That's okay. When we put it together, we broke it up. We have, here is all the logic for the forms and the buttons and the populating of the menu. And over here in this file, this contains all of the SQL calls. It kept it separated so that if you needed to make some changes, it's going to be a lot easier to find it using good naming conventions, insert default details, insert prep stages, things like that, so that if you are looking for an SQL query, you know what you're looking for. It's going to be much easier to find it versus just naming it SQL query 1, SQL query 2. Those are going to be very difficult to sort through. But that is the application as it is and how we designed it. Miss anything? Any questions? Any comments? Anything? Want to know about the?
Did you happen to have a SQL Server database so we can show everybody like all the tables that you created, the raw data? There are a lot actually. And by the way, SQL is the simple language. It's the language that you use to retrieve the data or to insert data into the system. So structured query language, that's what it stands for. And the design of the interface was optional actually as part of the project. The main focus is the database. So designing the database, inserting the data, and be able to retrieve the data were the main focus of the course, the database system.
Does it look like my MS SQL
Okay.
studio that's going to want to work?
I've got a design question.
Yes,
How
sir.
do you guys choose one variable over another, like one data type? Give me an example where you had to, you're sitting there on your table structure like you showed the ERD at the beginning, where you had to say, okay, is this going to be textual? Is this going to be quantitative? If quantitative, which type? Things like that.
We considered a lot of that at the database implementation phase. I think at first we kind of just separated out what would be textual and what would not be, and we didn't really specify further than that. As far as how we did that, it's a little bit of a common sense process. It's just, if you've got numbers, then it's going to be numerical data of some type. Although potentially you could have something like an identifier that it may be a number, but you might put it in as a string for various reasons, just because you're not going to be performing operations on it.
What's a string?
Okay, a string.
Okay,
No
understand.
science makers here.
So a string, essentially in a programming language, is just a structure that has text data inside of it. And what we mean when we say text data is really any sort of data that
It's data that you wouldn't want to perform mathematical operations on. You don't want to
Yes.
add, 4 plus tree.
Yeah.
They're going to be, the computer's going to say, okay, that's not a number, that's a string. I'm going to put them together and make 4 tree.
right. And so
Whereas-
the computer doesn't necessarily see numbers as numbers all the time, because you can specify whether that number is classified as an integer or whether that number is classified as a string, and the computer will interpret that differently depending on how you classify that.
You have questions, Zach?
So how scalable and changeable is this? If I wake up one morning and I say, I no longer want to make pizza, I want to be a baker. Can I throw in all of the bricks I'm going to sell, or
It's
I wake up and
extremely
I want-
flexible.
Okay.
The server management studio is not pulling up right now, but when you open that up, you'll see the insert statements that insert like the pizza. It'll have the recipes attached to it. It's going to have the ingredients attached to it, and it's just going to be a simple matter of just changing those values. Okay, we're not going to call this a pizza anymore. This is going to be cherry donuts or chocolate covered jelly rolls, and it's very morphable, very changeable with the interface. It has the different tabs for the customers, the employees, so that you can look at like the different aspects of the database. We didn't get the employee section like fully developed during the course of the class, but it's essentially the same functionality where you have, it would pull up a list for the employees, and you could click on each one, and you'd be able to see like when they started, what their pay rates are, et cetera, for someone like in an HR department, and be able to look at all the employees in the company. But it's very scalable. The databases will get just as big as you have space on your hard drive for. You can put any recipes, any ingredients, any names on there really easily. Just change what your default inputs are. So if you want to be a bakery, by the end of the day, end of the week at the most, we can have all the recipes put in, all the changeovers made, and you're good to go.
Other questions for our speakers? All right, well, let's thank them.